Good evening.
Good evening.
Please introduce yourself to the court and spell your last name for the record.
My name is J.C. Longstreet. It's Longstreet.
Mr. Longstreet, where do you work?
Well, I run an amusement park right here in Midlands called Rock the World. Now, it's no Disney, but it keeps food on the table, which is good because I love to eat. So.
Mr. Longstreet, tell us a little about your job.
Well, it's my job to make all the tough decisions for Rock the World. But outside of the logistics, I get to work with people, which is what I love most about my job. It's one of the reasons I got into the entertainment business in the first place.
Let's talk a little bit about how your park operates. How do customers purchase admission to the park?
With wristbands. All customers must purchase wristbands to get into Rock the World.
How many types of wristbands do you sell?
We sell two different types. We have our standard admission for $20. Then we have our VIP World Tour for $35. A deal I personally recommend. It's a pretty sweet deal if I say so myself.
Well, Mr. Longstreet, how do you keep track of how many wristbands are sold on a daily basis?
Well, the wristbands that we pass out to our customers, they all have tracking numbers on them. It's the job of our ticket booth operator to keep track of those wristbands as they sell them throughout the day.
Now, you just mentioned a ticket booth operator. Did you ever have an employee named Whit Bowman working in your ticket booth?
I did. In the summer of 2011, I hired Ms. Bowman as our ticket booth operator. She then returned back to the park in 2012 to work.
Do you see Whit Bowman here in court today?
I do. She's the young lady on the end of the table here in the white or cream colored dress you have on her.
Your Honor, may the record reflect that the witness has correctly identified the defendant, Whitney Bowman.
So reflects.
Now, Mr. Longstreet, you said that the defendant worked at your park in 2011 in the ticket booth and then returned to the park in 2012. Did she work in the ticket booth again that year?
No, in 2012, Whit was actually moved to our ride. She became one of my ride operators after she recommended that I hire her friend, Cameron, to work at the ticket booth. She came to me, she said, Mr. Longstreet, my friend Cameron would be perfect to work the ticket booth. He's good with money. She made him sound like the perfect man for the job, so I hired him.
Well, let's talk about 2012, the year that the person who was working in the ticket booth was Cameron Poole. That year, did you know how many of your World Tour wristbands you sold?
I didn't. And the reason is because the number of people wearing World Tour wristbands in the park didn't match the number of wristbands being sold in our financial records.
Your Honor, I'm approaching opposing counsel with what has been marked as State's Exhibit 1. Permission to approach the witness with State's 1?
Any objection?
Without objection, Your Honor. Mr. Longstreet, I'm handing you State's Exhibit 1.
Thank you.
Please take a look at this and tell us what it is.
States 1 seems to be a copy of Rock the World's profit and loss sheets.
Is that a fair and accurate copy of the park's profit and loss sheets?
Seems to be intact.
Who makes those records?
Well, my accountant, she makes them. She brings them to me, I review them and approve them.
What information is used to make those reports?
We use different information such as our maintenance expenses, our payroll. We get numbers from sales, merchandise, concessions, ticket sales, of course, etc.
How often are those records made and kept?
Well, we take all that information at the end of every day, and then at the end of every month, we make these financial sheets.
Your Honor, it's at this time that the state moves to admit into evidence States 1, the park's profit and loss sheets.
No objection, Your Honor.
So admitted, States 1 is now, do you want to mark States 1? You want to leave it as States 1?
Yes, Your Honor, it is labeled as States 1.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Longstreet, you told us earlier that what you saw in the park didn't match what you saw in your financial records. What exactly were you seeing in the park?
Well, in the park, I was seeing way too many customers in our World Tour ticket lines. I also started noticing a wristband that wasn't park issued.
How did you know it wasn't park issued?
Well, the wristband that I saw was faded in color. It looked flimsy, but the biggest thing was the tracking numbers that our wristbands that we pass out to customers have. That wristband didn't have them.
Now, earlier you talked about the importance of the wristband system and that tracking number. If you saw wristbands in the park that didn't have a tracking number, would they be recorded in those financial records?
No, they wouldn't. Without the tracking number, there's no way for the ticket booth operator to keep count of the wristbands being sold.
Well, what exactly were you seeing in your financial records that was different from what you saw in the park?
Well, I was seeing in the financial records that we were selling a lot fewer wristbands, world tours that we saw. These financial records showed that we were losing thousands of dollars in ticket sales.
Objection, Your Honor, to Acker Foundation.
What was your question again?
I asked the witness how the financial records differed from what he saw in the park.
Overruled.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Longstreet, you just said that those financial records showed that you lost thousands of dollars. After you noticed that, what did you do?
Well, I contacted one of the officers down at the financial crime unit to go over the information, see if he came with the same conclusion.
Well, now I'd like to talk about August 30th of 2012. Were you at the park on that day?
I was. August 30th was the day the incident happened at Rock the World that led to one of my security guards, Officer Winston Thomas, losing his life.
Now, I realize that it may be difficult to talk about that day, but it's something that we need to discuss. Were you at the park around 8 p.m.?
I was. Around 8 p.m. I was actually in my office, which is when I heard the initial screams coming from the ticket booth. I ran down there as fast as I could, and when I got there, I saw my ticket booth operator. She was on the ground, she was crying, quite upset.
Did you ask what happened?
I did. She informed me that Whit's friend had come to the park, he had a knife, and he threatened her.
How?
He threatened to carve her face up if she didn't give him all the money that she had in the ticket booth.
Now, you said that you were at the ticket booth. If you're at that ticket booth, what's the fastest way out of the park?
Well, the ticket booth, that's the main entrance and exit for Rock the World. So if you're there, you're at the fastest way out the park.
Well, when you were at the ticket booth, did you see where Cameron Poole went?
He actually ran in the opposite direction from the main exit through the park.
Are there any other ways to get in or out of the park?
We do have an employee access door in the back of one of our rides called the Tunnel of Terror, but that door is always locked.
Let's talk a little bit about the Tunnel of Terror. On August 30th, who did you assign to work that ride?
On August 30th, that assignment went to another one of my former employees. Her name was Billy Isaacs, but we all call her Honey.
Did you ever give the defendant permission to operate the Tunnel of Terror?
I did not. Actually, the last time I spoke with Whit, I gave her specific instructions to never operate the Tunnel of Terror.
Why?
Well, I caught her experimenting with the ride in blackout mode.
What is blackout mode?
It's a maintenance feature on our rides. When it's activated, all the lights shut off. It's complete darkness, but the ride itself, it keeps moving.
Mr. Longstreet, when did you tell the defendant to never operate the Tunnel of Terror?
A few days before August 30th.
Thank you. Your Honor, I have nothing further. Permission to approach the witness to retrieve admitted evidence?
No, permission's denied because she may want to use it. It's now in evidence, so typically we go to the clerk at this point, but it can stay there in case she has questions for the witness about that piece of evidence.
Yes, Your Honor.